Have you ever wondered if you truly control your own life? Every day we make countless decisions, from what to wear in the morning to major life choices like career paths or relationships. But what if every choice you've ever made wasn't really a choice at all? What if your life is governed by forces outside your control, set in motion long before you were even born? This question, whether we have control over our lives or whether everything is already determined, is one of the oldest debates in philosophy. On one side, we have determinism, the belief that everything in the universe, including our thoughts and actions, is the result of a chain of cause and effect that we can't escape. On the other side, there's free will, the idea that we have the power to make real choices, independent of these outside forces. So, which one is true? Do we have control, or are we just following a script that was written for us by nature, society, or even our biology? Let's explore both sides and see what we can uncover.
What is determinism?
Determinism is a view that everything in the universe happens for a reason. Every event is caused by something that came before it. Think of it like a line of dominoes. One falls, knocking over the next, and so on. According to determinism, everything that happens, including what we think of as choices, is like a domino in that line. Each choice is the result of events that happened earlier in our lives, our environment, our upbringing, and even our genetic makeup. Imagine waking up in the morning. You might think you chose to wear a blue shirt instead of a red one. But according to determinism, that choice wasn't really free. It was influenced by your personal preferences, your mood, maybe even the weather. And all of those things, the mood you're in, the weather outside, your favorite color, are shaped by factors beyond your control. This doesn't just apply to small, everyday decisions. Think about major life choices like where to go to college or who to marry. Even these big decisions are influenced by countless factors, many of which are outside our awareness. Your upbringing, your friends, the cultural norms of the society you grew up in, all of these shape the person you become and the choices you make. One of the most famous defenders of determinism was Pierre-Simon Laplace, an 18th-century French philosopher and mathematician. Laplace believed that if we could know everything about the current state of the universe, every particle, every force, and every law of nature, we could predict everything that would ever happen. This idea became known as Laplace's demon, a thought experiment suggesting that everything, even human behavior, is predictable if we have enough information. In this view, free will is just an illusion. Reflect for a moment. If everything you do is determined by your past experiences and external conditions, can you ever truly make a free choice? Or is your life simply unfolding the way it was always meant to, like a story that's already been written?
What is free will?
On the other side of this debate is free will, the belief that we do have the ability to make real choices that are not completely determined by external factors. Free will is the feeling that, despite our past and circumstances, we can act differently if we choose to. When you stand in front of a crossroads, free will says you are the one deciding which path to take, not some invisible force pushing you in one direction or another. One of the strongest defenders of free will was Jean-Paul Sartre, a French existentialist philosopher. Sartre believed that human beings are condemned to be free. According to him, we are not controlled by outside forces like society or biology, and we are fully responsible for our actions. This responsibility can be overwhelming, but it also gives us the power to shape our own lives. Sartre famously said, "Man is nothing else but what he makes of himself." In his view, we are not bound by fate or past events. We create ourselves through our choices. But how can free will exist in a world that seems so determined by cause and effect? This is where things get tricky. Even supporters of free will agree that we are influenced by external factors, our upbringing, our environment, and even our biology. But they argue that these influences don't completely control us. Instead, we have the ability to reflect on them and make decisions based on our own values and desires. Think about a time when you made a difficult decision. Maybe you chose to change careers, move to a new city, or end a relationship. What made you choose one option over another? Was it a rational process where you weighed the pros and cons? Or did it feel like an inner force, something that came from you, that led to the final decision? Proponents of free will would argue that this internal deliberation is proof that we are more than just a collection of external influences. We have the power to step outside of these influences and make choices that are genuinely our own.
The science behind the debate.
As we explore the debate between determinism and free will, it's impossible to ignore the role of modern science. Neuroscience, in particular, has added new layers to this ancient discussion. Some studies suggest that our brains make decisions before we're even aware of them, raising serious questions about whether we actually have control over our actions. In one famous experiment, neuroscientist Benjamin Libet asked participants to press a button whenever they felt like it. What he found was surprising. Brain activity related to the decision to press the button occurred before the participants were consciously aware of their decision. This suggests that our brains may decide what to do before we even know it, casting doubt on the idea of free will. However, not all scientists agree that this experiment proves we don't have free will. Some argue that while the brain might prepare us for action, we still have the ability to veto or change those actions once we're aware of them. This is known as the free won't theory, the idea that we can stop ourselves from doing something, even if our brain has already set the process in motion. There's also evidence that suggests our brains are highly influenced by external stimuli, such as advertising, social norms, and peer pressure. For example, when you walk into a grocery store, you might think you're making independent choices about what to buy. But in reality, your decisions are often influenced by product placement, brand recognition, and even subtle psychological tricks used by marketers. Think about this. If outside forces like advertisements or social pressure can shape your decisions without you realizing it, how much of your daily life is truly under your control? Is free will just a comforting illusion, or do we still have the ability to make meaningful choices?
Moral responsibility and determinism.
One of the biggest concerns about determinism is its impact on moral responsibility. If everything we do is determined by factors outside our control, can we really be held responsible for our actions? If a person commits a crime and that crime was the result of their upbringing, environment, or even brain chemistry, are they truly to blame? This is a question that has puzzled philosophers for centuries. Determinists argue that since our actions are determined by prior causes, we can't be held morally responsible in the traditional sense. After all, if we had no real choice, how can we be blamed for doing something wrong? However, most legal systems operate on the assumption that people do have free will and can be held accountable for their actions. Without the idea of personal responsibility, our sense of justice would fall apart. Imagine a world where no one is blamed for their actions because everything is seen as predetermined. How would we decide what's right and wrong? On the other hand, some philosophers like Immanuel Kant tried to reconcile determinism with moral responsibility. Kant believed that in the physical world, we are subject to cause and effect. But in the realm of morality, we are free to make choices based on reason. In other words, we can be determined in our physical actions but still free in our moral decisions. This raises another interesting question. Can we still hold people responsible for their actions if they are influenced by things like genetics or mental illness? For example, if someone commits a crime because of a mental disorder, should they be held to the same standard as someone who made the same choice without that condition? Determinists might say no, but supporters of free will argue that, regardless of our influences, we still have a choice in how we act.
Can determinism and free will coexist?
As we've seen, both determinism and free will have compelling arguments. But is it possible that they could both be true at the same time? Some philosophers think so. This view is known as compatibilism. Compatibilists argue that even if our actions are determined by prior causes, we can still have free will in a meaningful sense. For example, if your actions are determined by your own desires, beliefs, and preferences, you could still be considered free, even if those desires were shaped by external factors. In this view, freedom doesn't mean being completely independent of the world around us. It means being able to act in accordance with our own motivations. This idea might sound a bit confusing at first. How can we be both determined and free? Compatibilists suggest that the key is how we define freedom. Instead of thinking of free will as the ability to do anything, they argue that it's about being able to do what we want, without external constraints. There's also a more practical side to this debate. Even if we accept that many of our decisions are influenced by outside factors, compatibilists believe that we still need to act as if we have free will. After all, the belief in free will is what motivates us to take responsibility for our actions, work hard, and strive for personal growth. If we didn't believe in free will, we might stop trying altogether, assuming that everything is out of our control. Reflect on your own life. Do you feel free when you make decisions that align with your values and desires, even if those values were shaped by your upbringing? Could it be that freedom is more about making choices that feel right to us, rather than being completely independent of our circumstances?
The role of free will in self-development.
Another key aspect of this debate is its impact on personal development. Many self-help books, motivational speakers, and life coaches emphasize the importance of taking control of your own life. But can we truly take control if determinism is true? From a determinist perspective, self-development might seem like an illusion. If our actions are already determined by external factors, how can we really change ourselves? However, even within a deterministic framework, there is room for growth. By understanding the influences that shape us, our past experiences, our habits, our environment, we can make more informed decisions about how we want to live. For example, if you know that your procrastination habit is a result of anxiety or fear of failure, you can take steps to address those underlying issues. While determinism might suggest that your initial procrastination was inevitable, it also allows for the possibility of change through understanding and self-awareness. On the other hand, the idea of free will is often central to self-development. The belief that you can change your circumstances through effort and determination is empowering. It encourages people to set goals, overcome obstacles, and work towards becoming the best version of themselves. Even if our choices are influenced by external factors, the belief in free will gives us the motivation to take charge of our lives and make positive changes. Reflect on your own journey of self-development. Do you believe that your growth is a result of conscious effort and free will, or do you think it's more about responding to the circumstances that life throws at you? The debate between determinism and free will is complex, and it doesn't have a simple answer. Both sides raise important questions about the nature of human choice, responsibility, and control. Whether you lean towards the idea that your life is fully determined by external forces, or you believe that you have the power to shape your own destiny, this debate forces us to think deeply about what it means to be human. As you reflect on your own life, ask yourself, how much of what I do is really my choice? How much is shaped by forces outside of my control? And even if some things are determined, does that mean we should stop trying to make the best choices for ourselves and the people around us? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Do you believe in free will or determinism? And don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on more thought-provoking content. Finally, this video was narrated by AI, so please forgive any mistakes or awkward phrasing you might have noticed. If you spot any errors, feel free to point them out in the comments, and we'll work to improve in our future videos.